So, hi, Tricia. It's wonderful to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Melita.
Now, I'm really excited because you are all about using the power of your voice to say what you mean, to have influence, and really own yourself. And I know from my own journey into learning how to do that and explore public speaking, it's really transformed everything. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in and having a good discussion about that. But before we do, I'd love it if you could tell us, how did you get your business started in the first place? Because I know you've had quite an interesting background.
I have been working in New York City for the last 30 years in film, television, and theater. I'm a former dancer. I moved to New York City when I was 20 years old to pursue a career in dance. I danced all over the world. It was a very successful and fulfilling career. And then I moved to the other side of the table with directing, producing, writing. And 3 years ago, a friend reached out and said, I'd love for you to direct my TED Talk. I just landed a TEDx stage. And I thought, that sounds super fun, just like a one-woman show. I will work on script analysis, blocking, and choreography. We'll work on intention and acting, just like my actors. And that's what we did. And it was really, really fun. And I didn't think anything of it. And then she planted the seed that I should do this. And I thought, public speaking, interesting. Speakers want coaches. They want coaches. That's so, I had no idea. I had zero online presence, was not on Facebook. I was not on LinkedIn. I did not go online. And within the first 6 months, I created an entirely new online presence. I started my own podcast to give myself some credibility and visibility. And within 3 years, I have put more than 50 speakers onto more than 20 TED stages. I have over 300 episodes on my podcast, The Big Talk. I have over 200 episodes on my YouTube channel. I founded the Big Talk Academy, which is my 12-week signature speaker program. I found and curate the Speaker Salon in New York City, and I produce speaking events for people who want to take big stages. So in addition to the documentary films I make and the plays that I write, I am now really highlighting and amplifying and elevating voices in order to make the world a better place. And it is incredibly fulfilling. I also recently wrote a book called The Influential Voice, Saying What You Mean for Lasting Legacy. And what I've come to realize is that this business that I've created really was born out of the passion of being able to amplify and elevate voices and help people become effective storytellers.
I love that. And what a great example of just how far you can come in a very short space of time with no necessary, you don't, I mean, you haven't got a business background. It wasn't all laid out. You didn't have this clear plan because it was kind of just that seed was planted. And then you're like, oh, actually, maybe I could do something with this. And you followed that passion and made this incredible business that transforms lives and entertains people in the process as well. I think that's just such an encouraging message for everyone out there.
Thank you. And I love that you highlight that it transforms lives and entertains people. And from my theater background, I really believe that you can entertain from the stage while transforming the lives of others. It's really true.
Yeah, and I like that idea of entertaining people, and I think when I'll see a lot of people worrying about going live on social media or sharing their voice and their message because they're worried about being judged, and they're worried if they get it wrong. And I keep saying there is no wrong, just go with something you enjoy, and you'll connect with the other people that connect with that message and have that same resonance with you as well. And it's just a really wonderful experience. And I don't know if I've been doing it wrong, but in the kind of 7 or 8 years I've been present and visible, I haven't had anyone say anything but thank you. And
Oh,
it's
that's
yeah,
nice.
it's really encouraging. Oh, that helped someone. Okay, I'll do more of this, and it's just a wonderful way to connect and inspire and build that community and transform people. So, how do you generate that kind of connection through a stage?
Oh, I love this question. When you are speaking from a stage, whether it's a small stage, literally, whether it's a big stage at the Barclays Center where there's 15,000 people in New York, whether you are across the table from your kids, your partner, your family, your spouse, or from across the boardroom table from your colleagues, it is about being honest, authentic, and vulnerable. It means speaking your truth. It means letting go of being afraid of criticism and feedback. And I think the reason you're receiving thank you all the time for the last 7 or 8 years is because you're showing up fully yourself. And you're showing up in service of your community and in service of what you truly believe in, which is the idea of networking and really making these deep connections. So when you're talking from a stage and you are speaking to an audience, even though they're not literally talking back to you, it is a conversation. It is an exchange of energy. And when you show up fully and are present and you're making eye contact and you're opening up your heart physically, literally, and metaphorically, that's how you can connect on such a deep level from a stage.
Yeah. I know from just my small stages that I've spoken on, when I've shared my message and been really authentic with that, you really see them lean in and you feel that, and it's just really incredible when you are vulnerable to see the audience be vulnerable with you, and it's just, yeah, a wonderful experience.
And also there's something to be said about being comfortable with who you are
Mm.
and not trying to be someone else. I think, and I'm connecting with you across from the screen, from across the camera. We're not in the same room, obviously, but I still feel your truth. I can still feel that you're being exactly who you are in this moment. And that's why the connection is so good, because it's a truthful exchange.
Yeah. So have you got any advice? Because that's the scary thing, is being yourself. And a lot of the time we don't know who we are necessarily, particularly if we've been working in a corporate environment for a very long time and we've been told, well, this is how you behave, this is what your values are, this is how you get results. And then we have to discover who we are and what our authentic voice is. Do you have any advice on how to start that process and how to uh, handle the fear of that process, perhaps?
Two-part question. I love it. The first thing is really getting clear on purpose, values, and mission. When you understand why you get out of bed every morning and you're clear on your personal values, the ones that you live by today, not the ones that you grew up with necessarily, not the ones you see other people aligning with, but your values. And then marrying those two to create the mission, which is the strategy that's going to get you to where you want to go. That's the first thing. And the second part is the fear. When you forget about you, okay, you're clear on purpose, values, and mission. That's clear. That's the foundation. That's going to be your North Star, your compass. It's going to always bring you back to the truth of who you are and what it is you're talking about. Once that foundation has been laid, then you can move forward into the sharing of the message. And when fear gets in the way and sneaks in and tries to overhaul you, remind yourself that it's not about you. It's about this foundation that you set, your purpose, mission, and values, and the message, so that it's about the audience. And when you make it about the audience at all times and you allow yourself to coexist with fear, then you can connect on a much deeper level. And that fear is going to not prevent you from actually sharing the message that needs to be heard.
Yeah, I love that advice, and you know, that fear can just take over, but then we're denying our audience of our message, and our message needs to be shared. And it's okay, I think, if your voice wavers a little bit, people are really behind you. And it's funny that if you think, oh, everyone's going to think I'm not professional, or it's terrible if I fall apart on stage. I mean, I don't think anyone completely ever falls apart on stage. You just need to take a moment, but the audience is okay with that. So, and I think with practice, you see that as well. You see how people respond, and the more you do it, the more it becomes okay. But it takes a bit of courage at first. But yeah, if you make that message bigger than your fear, then I love that message.
And if you are a human being on stage and you drop the clicker or something happens and you acknowledge it, or if you've got a hair in your face and you're moving it out of the way while you continue to talk and you don't call attention to it, nobody's going to care. I was on a call this morning and there was literally a cat hair on my nose and it was tickling me so badly. And I thought, I have a cat hair on my nose. So I'm going to just gently move it off and have the conversation continue. Nobody's going to pay attention to that later.
Yeah. And I think when you're not 100% perfect, that almost makes you more relatable.
For sure. For sure.
So when it comes to speaking on stage, and you help people to speak on TEDx stages, as you were saying, how far along in your journey do you have to be before you can take to the stage? Do you need to have written a book to be the number one professional in your industry, or is there a particular point in time when people should start to go on stages, or is there any guidelines there that you have?
When it comes to TED specifically, you do not have to have ever taken a stage. You do not have to have a book. You do not have to have a PhD. You do not have to have a script fully written. You need an idea worth spreading and the ability to apply to an event. When it comes to speaking on a stage, what I always say is if you have the calling, then you must speak. Whether you know how or not, it's about figuring out how, whether it's joining Toastmasters, getting a coach, finding a mentor, going to speaking events and modeling people who you admire and who are amazing. But Melita, it's about understanding that your message must be shared. I've had so many speakers go through the Big Talk Academy who have never spoken once. And that's part of why I created this program, in order to serve as many people as possible who can't come to New York City or who can't work with me one-on-one. But it's really about, do you have the calling? Do you know that you have a story that needs to be shared? And if so, you must share it. And you can start simply by sharing the story with your loved ones, sharing the story with your colleagues. That's speaking. That is speaking publicly. So, sort of removing the formalization of what it means to speak and starting to do it. Clubhouse is the best place for anybody who wants to speak, because you are not on stage. It's just audio and you can practice. They are not recorded. So if you say something awkward or wrong, you can apologize and it's not going to end up anywhere. So I think it's really the perfect medium for anybody who's starting out when it comes to desiring to speak and to get better at the practice.
Mm, yeah, practice really does make perfect, doesn't it? Well, not perfect, but makes progress.
It does make progress. Yeah.
um, so when someone starts to speak on stage, how would that fit in with somebody's business strategy? What could they expect for their business as a result of speaking on stage? Is it just a nice thing to do, or is that there actually more a strategic purpose behind that?
So much of your visibility and credibility come from taking stages. And when you begin to speak about what you believe in, your values, your purpose, your mission, your vision of your company and what you believe in, you are going to organically inspire more business. You're going to organically drive traffic to your company. When you start to talk from a stage, whether it's actually what your business is about or not, you're going to attract those people. And I've done a lot of speeches about what it means to be a limitless creator and universal laws and consciously competent and all of that. That has nothing to do with public speaking, but because of my performance on stage and my background and my ability to talk about my life and where I came from and where I am now, it organically drives people to my business and they want to know more about me. The Influential Voice is really a book about how to be a good human being. Yes, there are a lot of tips and tools in there about how to be an effective communicator, but ultimately, I wrote this book because we need to learn how to speak with dignity and respect, and to respect differing opinions. We all don't have to think the same or have the same belief systems in order to be to come together as humanity. And I really wrote the book in order to teach anyone, whether you're a student, a teacher, a CEO, a thought leader, an influencer, an author, a TED speaker. Everyone needs to understand what it means to communicate with dignity and respect and to be an effective communicator. And that's why I wrote this book. So I think coming to the table as someone who has a thought and has a calling, that's all you need. The how is the easy part.
Yeah, I love that. And I truly believe, like, my career has always been in communications, and I always believe it's about connection. It's about creating meaning, it's about creating connection and playing with ideas and seeing where that's going to take you next. And it's just really exciting once you can learn those skills and discover who you are through that. Because
Mm.
like when you start practicing, you'll start to find your flow, your style, and fit in and get comfortable with that too.
You just gave me goosebumps, Melita, because there is so much self-discovery when you decide to start speaking. I hadn't thought of it like that before, but it's absolutely true and it's really powerful.
Yeah, it's completely transformed my life. So I've written a book as well, the Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, and it's going to be a series of books. But that what helped me turn from shy girl into someone who can actually function was public speaking. I started going to Toastmasters because I had to present at work. And I was quite conscious that as a communicator, I could get a message across, but it was quite boring. I thought there's enough boring corporate presentations out there. I don't want to be another one. So I went to Toastmasters, and honestly, it was 6 months before I spoke up. And as you'll know, at Toastmasters, most people speak from their first meeting or the second meeting, perhaps. But I was so shy. I was always hiding. I was timekeeper, so nobody noticed I wasn't taking part. But even before I started to stand up and speak in the meetings myself, I was showing up with more presence at work. And when I was giving presentations, people were asking me for tips. And I was like, wow, I haven't even spoken yet. But just from being in that environment and observing other people, I'd already taken some of those lessons on board. It was really quite an incredible experience. And learning to do the public speaking, to have that confidence, to get my message across clearly, it's transformed everything. I got promotions at work. I started to feel more comfortable networking. I was able to start my businesses. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't taken that step to start with public speaking. So I think it's not just about speaking on stage. It's really, as you say, about transforming your life.
Oh, that's so true. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
So you're all about big talk and the power of your voice. How else do you think that impacts or helps people in business other than being able to stand on a stage and speak?
When you're clear with what your beliefs are, again, going back to purpose, value, and mission, and you can communicate those beliefs authentically and truthfully and with clarity and power and influence, you are going to attract the right people to you and to your business. And you are going to be speaking the language of your perfect client. If you are not clear on how to communicate what your beliefs are, you're going to attract the client who's not meant for you. So that's why being super clear and having that influential voice and knowing how to communicate effectively will definitely attract the right clients that you want to be working with.
Mm. I love that you've focused in there on the right clients, because so many people, particularly in the early stages, oh, I'll take any client. And to be honest, in the earliest stages, you might not know who that perfect client is until you have those nightmare clients that we all have. And then you're like, okay, not that one.
Right.
um, so that's a discovery as well. But I love that when you have that authentic voice, that it does attract those right people to you.
Absolutely. And ultimately, it's a very intimate collaboration when you're working with clients, when you're bringing people into your business. I mean, we start companies because we care about what we want to put out into the world. So we want to attract clients that are going to have that same kind of love of what we're doing.
Yeah. So coming back to your business, when you maybe you didn't have so much of an expectation when you started out, as it was not necessarily part of a big master plan that you already had, but was there anything that has really stood out and surprised you in building a business that you didn't expect would happen, or in a good or a bad way?
I have been an entrepreneur my entire life. When I moved to New York City, I started a fitness company so that I didn't have to wait tables. So I have had a company of my own my entire adult life. Starting the business wasn't what was surprising to me. What was most surprising was how rapidly my company would expand. And that's because I hired business coaches, the right business coaches. There's a lot of them out there, and I had a few duds in the beginning, but I'm talking about the right team, the right mentors who could give me feedback and guidance that would help me make really good decisions for the company. So that's the biggest surprise, is that I didn't realize my company, what I cared about, would expand so rapidly, and that I didn't know there was a niche for this. I didn't know that people would pay for public speaking coaching. And that's also something I want to highlight, is that when I first started, I refused to call myself a coach because I'm a director. I work with actors. And calling myself a director of public speakers, nobody knew what I was talking about. So I had to get I had to release my ego and say, I'm a coach of public speaking. Now, anyone who works with me knows that I'm directing them just like actors. Like, that's how I work. I come to this table the same way I come to any table, whether it's rehearsing actors or speakers. But I think that was something that surprised me as well, is that there was a market for this. And because my point of view is so unique and I literally work like a director with theatricality, that's also why the company expanded so rapidly, is because it's a very unique way of coaching public speakers.
Mm. And I love that you've distilled your approach and you weren't tempted to, oh, every other public speaking coach does this, I better do that. You don't know, this is how I do it. And that's when it all works. And we've heard it so many times on this show that it's the moment when people decide, well, I'm going to do this the way I believe I best get results for people. And then it all comes together. So I love that you had that intuition and kind of stubbornness in a way, I suppose, from the very beginning.
I think I would say it's naivete, honestly. Ignorance, shall I say. I didn't know what else anyone was doing. So I just put to practice what I thought would give get the best results.
Yeah. And I also like that, well, a few things in there I think there's powerful lessons. One is asking for help. And if you can afford a business coach, amazing, because they will save you, the right ones, as you say, will save you so much time and effort and give you that framework to run on. So you're not figuring everything out from scratch. And that's really important. I know in my first business, I didn't know business coaches existed. And I really wish I did, because I think things would have been very, very different. And the other thing was that you really had, I forgot what I was going to say. You mentioned business coaches and
Not knowing what I was doing until I did.
yeah, that was one thing. Oh, your title.
Oh, title,
Out,
yes.
yes, and your, when it came to describing yourself, that you had your idea of what you wanted to be, what you were, but you have to go with the market. You have to kind of meet people where they are and what they understand, and go with what that meaning as well. Because I'm a business coach, but I don't necessarily think that I'm a business coach in the way that others are, but that's what people are looking for. That's what people understand. So I go with that and then explain the message and the context of that. Once you've kind of got people in, and then you can say, well, this is my methodology, this is my approach, and
what
you
makes
can
you
see it, that
unique.
resonates.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
true.
Yes, it's nice to have a bit of fun with titles and be a bit cutesy, but you also have to go with what works and what people understand.
Absolutely. Sometimes being simple is the way to get in the door, and then you can start to unpack the complexity of how you show up as a coach or a mentor or a director.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you writing a book or an article, the purpose of every sentence is to get the next one read. And it's very similar with your message. And when you're introducing your value, you want to start with the headline and then draw people in. And that headline has to be, they don't want to think, they just want to think, yes, straight away. I need to know more about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So when it comes to having an impact and influence, is it just the voice that's important for that, or is it anything else that people need to consider or work on in the background?
I think it's really how you show up every single day and consistently show up every single day. If you are online on camera one way, and then you write articles that are not in alignment with how you're showing up, or if you are this amazing presence online and then you're showing up poorly at home with your family, that is misaligned influence. It's really important that being an influential voice and being clear with how you're influencing others means you show up consistently. And here's the thing, we're all human beings and we're all flawed. And some days are going to be not as great as others. And there might be do-over days. You might have to apologize. You might have to say, I've been married coming up on 12 years. I have to apologize a lot. I'm in a happy marriage and sometimes I'm not my best self. And that is because we are human beings. And so when we aren't our best selves, it's important to own that, to ask for do-overs and forgiveness, to stay curious, to have courage, and to have humility. And that consistently will support you being an influential voice in all platforms.
Mm. And when you learn who you really are, then it's much easier to be consistent and congruent with that, because you're living your values naturally anyway. So another great reason to kind of get that clarity from the very beginning.
Absolutely, for sure.
So, Tricia, I've loved everything you've shared here. I mean, I think it's been so inspiring, and I know everyone's going to be like, right, okay, I need to get my voice sorted now. Is there anything else before we wrap up that you would like to share with the audience that perhaps we haven't covered yet, or anything you'd like to highlight?
One thing really stands out, and that's just to remind everyone who's listening and watching today that your voice matters. And if for 1 second you have a whisper that's telling you it doesn't, put that aside, because there's 7.8 billion people on the planet, and there is one person who is meant to hear from you. And when you share your powerful story and your message, you can change and even save their life.
Yeah, I love that. And when you're open and authentic with your message, you kind of give other people permission to be open with themselves too. And it's, I was telling my coachees when I'm working with my TEDx speakers that, some of them are quite nervous about sharing their story at first. Often the first time they've done that, but I just point out it's not your story. It's their story. And it's, when you have a message, it's not your message, it's your audience's message. And when you turn it around that way, then you have an obligation to share that almost.
Yep, so true. I agree completely.
Tricia, thank you so much for being on the show. Now, you've mentioned it as we were talking that you have got this incredible book out there, The Influential Voice.
I do.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book and what people can expect from it?
Of course, it really is a book about how to be a great human being. And within side of the pages, there are a lot of tips and techniques that you can put into use to become an effective, dignified, and respectful communicator. And I would love to offer your listeners chapter 1 for free. You can go to the influentialvoicebook.com/chapter, and you can grab the chapter for free. And if you want to go deeper, you can grab the entire book at the influentialvoicebook.com. But for the free chapter, do /chapter. And anyone who wants to get in touch with me, feel free to go to my website, triciabrouk.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Great. And it's Brook with a OU.
BROUK, that's right.
Great. And I'll put all of those links in the show notes below, so it's nice and easy for people, but it's great that you've told them where to find you for those people who are on the go. So thank you, Tricia. This has been just a wonderful and such an inspiring interview.
Thank you so much for having me, Melita. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.